I feel that I am privileged to live in a country with a rich World War II history. This is one of them. This is the American cemetery in Margraten, which is also the only American cemetery in the Netherlands, and where over 8,000 American soldiers are buried who participated in Operation Margraten, the Battle of the Bulge, and those who eventually fell in Germany. And because they didn't want to bury American soldiers on enemy soil, this location of this cemetery was specially chosen close to the German border. But that's not all. Among these 8,000 graves there are also 6 American soldiers who were awarded the Medal of Honor, and there are 40 sets of brothers who are buried side by side. So let's go and take a look at this beautiful cemetery, and above all commemorate those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. During the war, nearly 18,000 soldiers were buried here, including a couple of hundred German soldiers. And in the 50s, nearly 10,000 soldiers were reburied on different cemeteries throughout America. And the German soldiers were reburied at the cemetery in Eisenstein, leaving open areas on this cemetery. And because of this, they had to rearrange the complete cemetery, and to do so they hired a couple of architects from Boston, Massachusetts to design this cemetery as it is today. And if I turn around, this tower of nearly 30 meters high is a perfect example of this, but there are a lot of monuments throughout this cemetery which are beautiful. Over here you can see the 2 walls, and across is another one, are the walls of the missing that are, and on these walls there are 1,722 names chiseled of the missing soldiers. But if you take a closer look, in front of some names there is a rosette that indicates that this person was later found and identified, and most important, given a proper burial. So yeah, that's what this little rosette means in front of the names. You can see them here and there, but yeah, as you can see, there are still a lot of names who have never been found. This is a beautiful example of the architecture that was done by the architects from Boston, Massachusetts. This one was designed by Joseph Kalowski. I hope I pronounce it right. But this is a really beautiful monument. This represents a grieving woman due to the pain and suffer of World War II. And if you take a look on her left, there is a remains of a tree which is damaged by the violence of in this case World War II, but there is a new tree growing out of it, which represents new life. Because how hard it may be after the war, the people picked up their old life, and this is what that represents. And the doves that are flying on the left of this grieving woman are doves which are used worldwide as a symbol of peace. I've been here before on the cemetery, and I always take the time to stop for a while and take a look at this beautiful monument. In this little corner there are two gigantic frontline maps showing the front line and the course of the war after June 6, 1944, or D-Day, better known as D-Day. And also there has been paid attention to the American strategic air raids from 1942 and onwards. And what you see here are all the places where battle has been fought by the American troops. So as you can see, Maastricht, which is close to this cemetery, Eindhoven, Grave, Nijmegen, which was part of, and Arnhem, which was part of Operation Margraten, and then you come to Linnich, which is Germany. This is the grave of Willie James Jr. He was a private first class in the Company J of the 413th Infantry Division of the 104th Infantry Division, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions on April 8, 1945, when he was observing the German positions from a forward operation post for a few hours, and when he went back to his own troops with the information that he had, he led a few attacks on various positions of the Germans. But when his commanding officer was mortally injured by the Germans, without hesitation he ran to his commander to bring him into safety. But unfortunately he was shot and killed himself. So for this action he was awarded the Medal of Honor. This is the grave of George Peters, who was a private in the Airborne, the 502nd. When he landed on a field with 10 other paratroopers who was covered by a German machine gun nest. And they were an easy target, only 75 meters away. Peter quickly realized that they were a easy target for the Germans. So he stood up for a one-man attack towards the machine gun nest, and on his way to the machine gun nest he was shot a couple of times in his legs till he couldn't walk anymore, and he picked himself up to crawl towards the machine gun nest, and when he was close enough he threw a couple of hand grenades in the machine gun nest, killing the Germans behind the machine gun and the riflemen who were protecting the machine gun nest. And it was only after the war, on February the 8th, 1946, that George Peters was awarded the Medal of Honor. This is the grave of Walter Wetzel, which was a private first class of an anti-tank company of the 13th Infantry Regiment of the 8th Infantry Division. When he was on watch over the command post in Birken, Germany, he saw a group of German soldiers advancing towards the house that he was guarding. Wetzel ran inside to warn his comrades who were still inside this house. But in the meanwhile, this group of Germans was so close to the house that they were able to throw in a couple of hand grenades. Private Wetzel didn't hesitate and warned his comrades by yelling grenade, and threw himself on the hand grenades to sacrifice himself to save his comrades. Private Wetzel was awarded the Medal of Honor on February 26, 1946. This is the grave of George Peterson from New York. He served in Company K of the 18th Infantry Regiment of the 1st Infantry Division. And when during an attack on 30th of March 1945 a mortar struck here next to him and injured him to his legs. He was bleeding pretty bad, but he continued the attack to come under fire of 2 machine guns. George managed to crawl up to the machine gun and throw a hand grenade to knock out both of the machine guns. And he advanced a bit further and came under fire of a 3rd machine gun, which he also knocked out. And after the attack he was treated by a medic when another mortar hit and wounded one of his men. George ran to his soldier to assist him with his injuries, but at that point a German bullet struck George and killed him instantly. And he was awarded the Medal of Honor on October 17, 1945. This is the grave of Walter Will, who was a 1st lieutenant also in the 18th Infantry Regiment of the 1st Infantry Division, just like Peterson. And he was also in the Eisen region of Germany, just like Peterson. Walter had knocked out several machine guns nests during an attack and had carried wounded off the battlefield, and this all at the risk of his own life. Also, Walter overran 9 Germans who immediately surrendered. But this is the sad part, but in a final charge that left him ahead of his platoon, Walter was mortally wounded, and on October the 17th, 1945, Lieutenant Walter was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. This is the grave of Lieutenant Colonel Robert G. Cole, which was a part of the 502nd Parachute Infantry of the 101st Airborne Division, and who was awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroic attack on June 11th, 1945, just 5 days after D-Day. To capture the last 4 bridges leading into Quarantine. Also, this was the first bayonet charge of the Second World War. He started with his men to run through the German lines, resulting in heavy man-to-man fighting. But in the end, he managed to capture all 4 bridges leading into Quarantine. And as I said in a previous video, he was unfortunately killed on 18 September 1944 during Operation Market Garden, which you can see in a previous video of mine. I hope you find it an interesting story that I told you about the American cemetery in Margraten. And for now, have a good day, and I hope you'll join me on my next travel to history. See you later.